Someone call security. That filthy mutt has my bag. Roland Whitmore's voice thundered across the polished marble floors of the Biltmore Plaza, echoing like the wrath of a man who had never been told no. No one moved. Not the concierge. Not the doorman. Not even the young janitor frozen near the lobby entrance, mop suspended mid-air. Maybe it was the shock of seeing the city's richest man net worth $4.6 billion, according to Forbes, chasing after a scrappy-looking stray dog with the desperation of a man whose fortune had just vanished in a fur. The dog bolted through the revolving doors, a soft yelp escaping as the heavy leather satchel swung beneath its jaw. Inside the monogrammed Louis Vuitton bag, a diamond-studded Rolex, a titanium iPad, and a flash drive containing confidential merger contracts worth more than most people's lives. And still it ran. Roland barreled after it, his Italian loafers clacking angrily against pavement. "I'll have that thing shot," he growled, ignoring the disapproving stares of passing pedestrians. The summer air in downtown Atlanta was thick and unforgiving, but Roland's fury burned hotter. He chased the mutt for blocks, through alleys that reeked of damp garbage and lost people, past graffiti-splattered walls and broken streetlights. And still the damn dog ran, until finally it turned down a dead-end street and vanished. Panting and drenched in sweat, Roland staggered to a halt, where he heaved, gripping a rusted fence. Where the hell? A faint rustling. He turned. The dog stood there, halfway behind a dumpster, its eyes fixed on him. Its sides heaved. The his bag lay gently at its paws. It didn't look scared anymore. Just waiting. Roland frowned, straightened his suit jacket, and stepped forward. Then he heard the door creak. A shack of a house barely upright, its wood paneling cracked and rotting, stood behind the dumpster. The screen door opened slowly, revealing a thin boy, maybe 10, barefoot, and wearing an oversized tee that read "Choose Kindness." The boy's eyes widened. "And Momo, you came back." The dog's ears perked up. It wagged its tail once, limped toward the boy, and nestled at his feet. Roland blinked. The boy bent down, whispering, "Good girl," and hugged the mangy creature like it was the most precious thing on earth. The man and the boy locked eyes. "You sent the dog to rob me?" Roland snapped. The boy flinched. "No, sir. She must have smelled your lunch. She's hungry all the time." I'm sorry." Roland stepped closer, towering over them. The boy didn't move. His hand trembled slightly on the dog's back. "You live here?" Roland asked coldly, eyeing the broken porch steps and cardboard in the windows. The boy nodded once. "Alone. My grandma's inside," the boy said. "She's sick." Roland was silent for a beat. Then he reached down, snatched the bag off the ground, and turned to go. But something stopped him. Not a sound, not a word, just the silence of dignity. That dog hadn't chewed a single item. Not the $1,000 pen, not the watch, not even the protein bar. It had carried his bag miles, dodging traffic, barking at strangers, and delivered it here. To this boy who didn't scream or run when a furious billionaire stormed into his yard. This boy who called a street dog family. Against every impulse that had built his empire, Roland turned back. "What's your name?" The boy hesitated. "Taj." He nodded, as if that explained something deep and secret. And Roland did something he hadn't done in decades. He sat down, on the ground. Taj looked confused but didn't speak. Momo snuggled between them, her tongue lolling out, tail thumping. Minutes passed. Maybe 5. Maybe 10. Finally, Roland whispered, "She stole my bag." Taj gave a tiny smile. "She brings back things. Sometimes. Ever since I pulled her from the storm drain. You saved her. She was stuck. I got bit by rats, but she was so scared." Roland stared at the boy's arm. Faint pink scars. Not fresh, but real. You don't go to school? Roland asked. Not this year, Taj said, voice low. Grandma can't walk, and I gotta help her. Roland opened the bag, pulled out the protein bar, handed it over. Taj's eyes lit up. For me? Roland nodded. And just like that, something cracked. Not in the sky, not on the ground. In him. For 40 years, Roland had climbed a ladder built on exploitation, silence, and boardroom wins. But now, sitting on this uneven porch in a forgotten street of Atlanta, staring at a child who had nothing but gave everything to a doe, felt, for the first time in decades, human. He didn't know it yet, but that moment would undo everything he thought he knew. And it all started because a stray stole his bag. Taj devoured the protein bar like it was a 3-course meal. Halfway through, he paused, broke off a piece, and held it out to Momo. The dog accepted it gently, chewing as if savoring every bite. Roland, still seated awkwardly on the dirt, watched in stunned silence. "What's your grandma's name?" he asked. "Ms. Laverne," Taj replied, but everyone used to call her Miss V. Roland looked toward the house. "Used to?" Taj's eyes dropped to the ground. "She don't talk much no more. Sometimes not at all. Her lungs are bad. Doctor says we need machines and stuff." But he trailed off. He didn't need to finish. Roland's gaze swept over the front of the house. The warped screen door, the single sagging step, an electricity meter with a red tag fluttering in the breeze. No child should live like this. And yet, this child wasn't asking for anything. He looked back at Taj. "You got any other family?" Taj shook his head. "What about your parents?" "My mom passed when I was 5. Some man in a big truck didn't stop at the light. She was walking me home from preschool." Roland exhaled slowly. "And your father?" "Never knew him." The boy said it simply. No bitterness, no drama, just a fact. Like sunrise, like hunger. Roland sat back, letting the reality of the boy's life sink in. He had spent the last year fighting tooth and nail to buy out a rival airline, laying off thousands in the process, yet this 10-year-old kid spoke with more grace and poise than half his board. "What do you do all day?" Roland asked. Taj wiped his mouth and folded the wrapper into a perfect square before slipping it into his pocket. "Help Grandma. Wash her. Change the sheets. I use the faucet out back when there's water. Sometimes I look for cans to sell. Momo comes with me. She's real good at sniffing them out." Roland blinked. "You collect cans?" 5 cents each, Taj said proudly. "If I find 20, that's $1. That's enough for ramen. Or crackers. Sometimes chicken if it's on sale." "You're 10, Roland said, almost to himself. "You should be in school. Playing. Laughing. Not. Surviving." Taj shrugged. "Ain't got much choice. But it's okay. We got each other." Momo thumped her tail. Roland stood up slowly, brushing dirt off his slacks. He reached into his inner pocket, pulled out a sleek black card, and handed it to the boy. "What's this?" Taj asked, confused. "My assistant's number. Her name's Candace. She'll answer day or night. If you ever need anything, food, medicine, someone to drive you to a doctor, you call her." Taj stared at it, hesitant. "But I don't got a phone." Roland froze. Of course he didn't. He reached in a bag, pulled out his iPad, and hesitated. No, too complex. Then he remembered. The emergency cell. The one every executive kept in case of a blackout. Cheap, prepaid, but reliable. He pulled it from the side pocket and held it out. Taj's hands shook as he took it. "You serious?" "It's yours. I added Candace's number already. There's money on it. You don't need to call anyone else." Taj swallowed. "I can't pay you back." Roland crouched. "I don't want you to. Just promise me something." The boy nodded. "Keep helping Momo. And don't stop being kind. Not ever. You hear me?" Taj smiled, wide and sincere. "Yes, sir." Roland stood again, feeling something foreign swell in his chest. Not pity, Not charity. Respect. He turned to leave, but hesitated. Can I see your grandma? Taj looked surprised. She's real tired, but I guess. He led Roland up the warped steps, gently opening the door. The smell hit first mildew, old medicine, and something faintly floral like potpourri fighting to stay alive. Inside, the space was small but clean. Duct-taped chairs. A thin blanket hung in the window, and in the corner, lying on a cot beside a rusted heater, was an old woman. She was rail-thin, wrapped in faded robes, her skin paper-thin and glistening with sweat. An oxygen tank sat nearby and used. Her chest rose slowly, laboriously. "Grandma," Taj whispered. "This man helped me." And Momo. Her eyelids fluttered, barely opening. She stared at Roland for a long second, then gave the tiniest nod before slipping back in a shallow sleep. Roland took it like a benediction. Outside again, he looked up at the cloud-thick sky. Thunder rumbled in the distance. "Taj," he said, turning, "I'm going to send someone here. A doctor, maybe a nurse. You won't owe me anything. I just want to help." Taj's mouth opened, but no sound came, and then hugged Roland. It was brief, just a flash of skinny arms around a suited waist. But it was real, and it shattered something inside the billionaire that had long since calcified. He let the boy go and walked away. He didn't look back, but he didn't stop thinking either. That night, Roland sat alone in his penthouse suite, staring out over Atlanta. Everything was polished and perfect. Marble floors, gold fixtures, a wine cellar bigger than most homes. But the silence felt louder than ever. He picked up his phone, called Candace. "Sir, I want you to schedule a press conference tomorrow. Noon." "Yes, sir. What's the subject?" He paused. "A partnership between the Whitmore Foundation and a new initiative. I want to provide housing, education, and medical care to underprivileged children in the city. We'll call it the Taj Project." There was a beat of stunned silence. Then, understood. "Anything else?" "Yes. Find out who owns the land on 58th and Garrison. Where that little house is." "Exactly. I want it off the books by Monday. Quietly. Then send in a construction crew." "To demolish?" "No," he said. "To restore." The next morning, news broke across all networks. Roland Whitmore, T.O., fund massive youth program. Donates $20 million seed grant. But Taj didn't see the headlines. He was busy feeding Momo leftover crackers. And when a van pulled up with doctors, new bedding, and groceries, they thought they had the wrong house. Until the boy stepped outside, holding a cheap prepaid phone. "You came," he said. "Mr. Whitmore keeps his promises," the nurse smiled. Inside, Miss V opened her eyes fully for the first time in days. She smiled, weak but radiant, as Taj squeezed her hand. Outside, Momo barked once. Not in mourning, but in joy. 3 days passed. On the morning of the 4th, the same broken street that once echoed only with sirens and silence now buzzed with motion. A white truck pulled up to the curb. Then another. Men in neon vests and steel-toed boots hopped out, setting up barriers, rolling out cords, and measuring foundation cracks with laser levels. Across the street, Taj stood barefoot in the dirt, watching it all with wide eyes. "You sure they got the right house?" he asked one of the men. The foreman, a burly Latino with salt and pepper hair, checked his clipboard. "If this is 58th and Garrison, then yep. You must be Taj." Taj nodded slowly. The foreman smiled. "Mr. Whitmore told us to treat this place like it belonged to his own grandson." Taj blinked. "I'm not his grandson." "Could have fooled me," the man chuckled. "Now go inside. It's going to get noisy." That afternoon, the banging started. Hammers and drills. Chainsaws on old branches. Dumpsters filled with rotted wood, broken furniture, and an old, rusted mattress that had seen too many winters. Taj and Miss V had been moved temporarily to a clean apartment 2 streets over, one that smelled like lemons and didn't leak when it rained. Momo came too, of course now washed, vaccinated, and wearing a red collar with a gold tag that read Whitmore's girl. Roland visited the next day. He arrived without cameras, without press, without the tailored suit. Just jeans, a blue polo, and 2 bags of groceries. Taj opened the door, stunned. "You came back." Roland smiled. "Told you I would." Taj stepped aside, letting him in. Miss V was sitting up in bed, a scarf wrapped around her head, eyes alert but tired. "So you're the man making all this fuss," she croaked. Roland approached and took her hand gently. "And you must be Miss V." She chuckled. "Didn't think I'd see the day a rich white man sat in my living room without a camera crew." Roland smiled. "Didn't think I'd see the day a stray dog taught me more than Harvard." That made her laugh. It was a raspy, wheezing sound, but it was real. For the next hour, they talked. About nothing and everything. The neighborhood, the schools, the city that had forgotten parts of itself. Taj sat between them, sipping apple juice and watching like he was dreaming. Later, as Roland stood to leave, Miss V reached out. "Whatever it is you're doing, don't stop. There are more kids like Taj. A lot more." He nodded solemnly. "I know. That's why I started the Taj Project." She blinked. "You named it after him?" "He saved a life," Roland said, looking at the boy. "Not just the dog's. Maybe mine too." When he left that day, he gave Taj a hug. Not the stiff, awkward kind. A real one. 2 weeks later, the house was done. Fresh paint, reinforced walls, a new porch, solar panels, and even a small fence guard in the back. Inside, new beds, appliances, working heat, and internet access. The city had inspected it twice. Roland stood outside with Taj and Miss V as the ribbon was cut. No reporters, no TV vans, just neighbors, watching with awe as the family they'd pitted for so long stood in front of the nicest home on the block. "You did this," one woman whispered to Taj. He looked at her, then down at Momo. "We did it." As summer turned to fall, the Taj project expanded. In just 6 months, 5 other homes were rebuilt in West Atlanta. Then 10. A school was renovated, supplied with iPads and a proper lunch program. Roland used his network of CEOs and venture capitalists not to ask for donations, but to demand participation. "You owe this city more than traffic and taxes," he told them. Some rolled their eyes. Most listened, and some followed. By the end of the year, the Taj Project was a nationwide headline. A wealthy white businessman dedicating his fortune to fixing what centuries of injustice had broken. But when journalists asked him why he never mentioned mergers, charity, or politics, he always said the same thing. "A dog brought me there." Taj, meanwhile, became a symbol. But no one treated him like a prop. Roland made sure of that. The boy was enrolled in the best local school, now with a scholarship fund in his name. He had tutors, mentors, and weekend classes in robotics, coding, and art. But he never changed who he was. Still humble, still grounded, still Momo's best friend. One day in January, Roland received a call. "Mr. Whitmore," a woman's voice said nervously. "It's Taj. He's in the hospital." He was there in under 30 minutes. At the emergency room, Taj was sitting on the edge of a bed, pale but smiling. Momo was curled at his feet, tail wagging. "What happened?" Roland asked, breathless. Taj held up a bandaged hand. "I was climbing a tree. Slipped. Glass caught me on the way down." "You scared me half to death," Roland said, sinking into the chair. "Sorry," Taj mumbled. There was silence. Then Taj said, "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why me?" Roland blinked. "You could have walked away that day. You got your bag back. Most people would have just left." Roland leaned forward. You know what I saw when I looked at you, Taj? What? Myself. When I was very, very young. Except no one helped me. I climbed out of it with spite. You climbed out with love. Taj looked away. But I didn't do anything special. Yes, you did. You were kind, even when the world wasn't. Another pause. Then Taj asked, "Do you think I can help people like you do?" Roland smiled, slowly. "I think you already are." In the months that followed, Taj joined meetings. He sat in on planning sessions. He helped redesign the program from the inside. Soon, he was speaking at schools, churches, and even City Hall. People listened not because he had money, but because he had truth. The truth of what it meant to go hungry, to be invisible, to be counted out, and to rise anyway. At the one-year anniversary of the Taj Project, a large celebration was held in a converted warehouse turned community center. Hundreds attended. Music played. Food was served. Roland gave a speech. So did the mayor. And then Taj was called on stage. He stood nervously, clutching the mic. The lights were hot. The crowd was loud. But his voice was clear. "My name's Taj," he began. "I used to live in a house that was falling apart. I had no school, no phone, and only one pair of shoes. But I had a dog named Momo. And one day, she stole a Billionaire'S bag." Laughter. He smiled. And somehow, that changed everything. He paused, then looked directly at Roland in the front row. "Mr. Whitmore didn't just fix our house. He listened. He cared. He made me believe I mattered. That we all do." Applause. I know there's a lot more to fix. A lot of kids still hurting. But if one dog can change a man, and one boy can change a project, then maybe all of us together can change the world. The place erupted. Roland stood, tears in his eyes. Not from guilt, but from pride. After the event, he and Taj stood outside, looking up at the stars. "Think it ever ends?" Taj asked. "The fixing, I mean?" Roland shook his head. "No, but that's not a bad thing. That's how we stay human." Taj nodded, thoughtful. "Someday, I want to do what you did. Start something big." "You will," Roland said. "And I'll be right beside you." Then Momo barked, loud and joyful. The two laughed. And somewhere in that night quiet, unnoticed, the world turned a little softer. 3 years later, the Taj Project had touched over 50 cities. From abandoned lots in Detroit to hurricane-wrecked neighborhoods in New Orleans, the red and gold emblem of a leaping dog over a rising sun had become a quiet promise. "We see you." In Atlanta, the original headquarters now stood as a full-service campus. It included a medical clinic, a trauma-informed school, a legal aid office, and a small shelter named Momo's Home for abused or abandoned dogs and children alike. At its heart remained Taj, now 13, taller, steadier, and sharp in both mind and heart. Still humble, still grounded, still refusing every offer to move somewhere nicer. "I live here," he would say, "so I fight here." Miss V had passed peacefully in her sleep the previous spring. Roland had held Taj's hand the entire funeral. A bronze plaque now sat on the front porch of their restored home, in memory of Miss Laverne, Miss V. Jenkins, who raised a warrior with nothing but grace. Grief changed Taj, but it didn't harden him. Instead, it turned his voice clearer, his purpose stronger. He began writing letters to city officials, testifying before councils, visiting prisons and group homes to speak to kids society had tossed away. One of those visits changed everything. The facility was small, gray, forgettable, but inside were 23 boys under 16, each locked behind barbed fences for crimes that began with hunger, pain, or desperation. Taj stood before them, holding a worn photo of himself, age 9, barefoot, holding Momo with one hand and a cracked flashlight with the other. "This was me," he said. Most didn't react. One boy scoffed. So, Taj continued calm, This was also the day I met someone who didn't walk past me. He lowered the photo. A rich man. White. Powerful. Everything I wasn't. He could have called the cops. Yelled. He didn't. Instead, he sat beside me. He saw me. A pause. And that saved my life. Something in the room shifted. Just slightly. And it was enough. Taj didn't stop there. He started a side initiative within the Taj Project focused specifically on formerly incarcerated youth. He called it Second Light. His pitch was simple. We all deserve another sunrise. When he turned 15, Roland took him to Washington, D.C. for the first time. Not as a tourist, but as a guest of honor. They met senators, congresspeople, even the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. Taj was nervous. He didn't wear suits well. But Roland kept reminding him, they don't care what you wear. They care what you carry. In the room filled with officials, Taj stood and said, if you want to fix the system, ask the people who live inside it. The room went silent, then erupted in applause. Later that night, back in the hotel, Roland stood with Taj on the rooftop terrace overlooking the Capitol. You're going to lead something far greater than I ever did, Roland said quietly. Taj leaned on the railing. Maybe, but not alone. Roland looked over. What do you mean? I want you to keep going, Taj said. But one day, when I'm ready, I want the Taj Project to be ours. Not just yours. Not just mine. Something we give to the people. A foundation run by the people who lived it. Roland nodded slowly. You have no idea how proud I am of you. Taj smiled. I think I do. Then he added, you ever think about how weird this is? Roland laughed. Every day. I mean, it all started because Momo stole your bag. Technically my lunch, Roland said. They both laughed. Years passed. The world spun. Change didn't come overnight. It never does. There were setbacks. Cities that pushed back. A scandal involving a corrupt official misusing project funds. A storm that wiped out 3 newly built homes. But through it all, Taj stood firm. By 17, he had already been nominated for the National Service Medal. He declined it, stating, no award replaces a hot meal or a bed. At 18, he became the youngest board member in the Taj Project. At 19, he published a memoir, Chased by a Dog, Caught by Grace, which topped bestseller lists for 8 weeks. At 20, he was named to Time's 100 Most Influential People. But the only article he kept framed was one from a small neighborhood paper in Atlanta. The headline read, Local boy fixes house, then fixes hope. In the photo, he's standing with Roland and a small girl in a wheelchair, both smiling, in front of the original house on 58th and Garrison. One rainy evening, Taj and Roland sat on the same porch where it all began. Momo was old now, her muzzle gray, her steps slower, but her eyes still sparkled. Taj gently stroked her ears. She's not got much time, he said softly. Roland nodded. She's had a life most dogs never get. She saved 2 souls. Taj smiled. You think dogs know? More than we do, Roland replied. They sat there as the rain pattered on the roof. No talking, just breathing. When Momo passed 2 weeks later, they buried her under the tree in the yard, beside a small stone that read, Momo, the dog who chose right, and changed everything. The funeral was small. Just Taj, Roland, a few close friends. No cameras, no speeches, just tears and gratitude. Afterward, Roland handed Taj a letter. It was handwritten, long signed simply, your friend, always are. Taj didn't read it right away. He waited until night, when the house was still and quiet. Then he opened it. Inside was more than memories. It was a final request. Roland had been diagnosed with cancer 6 months earlier. He hadn't told anyone, because, as he wrote, this story was never about me, and I want it to end the same way it began with you. Taj didn't cry right away, but when he did, it was deep, honest. 2 months later, Roland passed peacefully in his sleep, surrounded by family. He left the majority of his fortune not to his estate but to the Taj Project, along with one line in his will. Taj Jenkins is not just my successor. He is my better. The world mourned. But Taj didn't slow down. Now, in his early 20s, he led the foundation with quiet fire, expanded its scope, added mental health programs, advocated for juvenile justice reform, met with presidents and paupers alike. But he always came home, to the house on 58th and Garrison, to the tree that shaded Momo's grave, to the roots that started all. One summer afternoon, a little girl wandered up to him after a speech. She was maybe 9, dirty shoes, torn shirt, holding a stray puppy wrapped in a towel. "Mr. Taj," he knelt down. "Yeah, this dog, he don't got nobody." Taj looked at the puppy, shivering, eyes too big for its body. He smiled gently. "I think you just became somebody." Her face lit up. He handed her a small card. Still black, still simple, still with a number. "Call this," he said. "We'll help you, both of you." She nodded and ran off. And Taj turned, eyes full, heart steady, because he knew this wasn't the end of the story. It was just another beginning. One bag, one dog, one boy, and a world changed by grace. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.